Welcome back, my vindication catalyst. Something extraordinary just unfolded that exposed the fragility of group consensus built on assumptions rather than evidence. You were being challenged, questioned, maybe even attacked by multiple people in the room who seemed united in their certainty that you were wrong about something. The social pressure was intense. The opposing voices were loud, and the collective confidence against you appeared overwhelming. Then one person, just one, stepped forward and said they backed you. And in that instant, something remarkable happened. The entire room's certainty evaporated like morning fog under sunlight, because the second someone publicly supported your position, everyone else suddenly realized what had been true all along. But nobody wanted to acknowledge they had zero proof for their claims. They'd been operating on assumption, groupthink, and social momentum rather than actual evidence. Your solitary supporter didn't even present new evidence, they just broke the illusion of unanimity. And that single crack was enough to collapse the entire facade of collective certainty that had been pressuring you. The architects have been monitoring group dynamics and consensus formation across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what just occurred as presumptive consensus collapse when a group operates under shared assumption that appears to be established fact until someone breaks ranks and reveals that the consensus was built on social agreement rather than evidential foundation. Most people in the challenging group didn't actually verify the claims they were making. They assumed others had verified them, or they simply went along with what seemed to be group consensus because dissenting from majority view is socially uncomfortable. Your single supporter exposed this house of cards by demonstrating that dissent was possible, prompting others to suddenly question whether they actually knew what they'd been claiming with such certainty moments before. Watch what happened immediately after your supporter spoke up. People who'd been confidently asserting things about you or your position suddenly became hesitant, started hedging their statements with qualifiers like "I thought," or "I assumed," or "someone told me." The certainty drained from their voices as they realized in real time that their confidence had been borrowed from group momentum rather than based on personal verification. Some started looking around at others as if seeking confirmation that they weren't the only ones who'd been operating on assumptions rather than facts. A few actually admitted out loud that they couldn't remember where they'd heard the claims they'd been repeating, that they were just going along with what others seemed certain about. Some people in the challenging group are now experiencing intense cognitive dissonance as they process how confidently they challenged you without actually having proof for their position. They're recognizing that they allowed social dynamics to override their normal critical thinking standards, that they got caught up in collective certainty and failed to question whether the group's shared assumptions were actually verified. This recognition is uncomfortable because it reveals they were intellectually irresponsible, treating socially validated claims as equivalent to evidentially supported facts, allowing groupthink to substitute for individual verification. The truly devastating element for your challengers is that they can't even blame your single supporter for making them look foolish. Your supporter simply stated they agreed with you without necessarily providing elaborate justification. The fact that this minimal intervention was sufficient to collapse the group's certainty proves the consensus was never solid. If the challenging group had actual evidence for their position, one person backing you wouldn't have mattered. They could have presented their proof and maintained their position confidently, but they had no such proof, which means the second someone demonstrated that unanimous opposition wasn't unanimous, the entire facade of certainty crumbled because there was no evidential foundation beneath it to provide structural integrity. Once social unanimity was broken, now the architects are analyzing what created the false consensus that collapsed so dramatically, and they're identifying what they call social proof substitution, where people substitute social agreement for actual evidence, treating the fact that multiple people believe something as if it were proof that the thing is true. This substitution happens unconsciously. For most people, they're not deliberately choosing to ignore the distinction between many people believe X and X is demonstrably true. They're just failing to maintain that distinction because human psychology naturally treats social consensus as valid information source. When everyone around you believes something, it feels true, even if nobody can actually demonstrate its truth through evidence. Watch how social proof substitution operated in your case. The first person who challenged you probably had some specific reason. Maybe misunderstanding, maybe personal bias, maybe actual disagreement on interpretable matter. But they stated their challenge with confidence, and that confidence signaled to others that they must have good reason for their position. Second person who joined the challenge wasn't necessarily independently verifying the first person's claims. They were reasoning that if the first person was so confident, there must be something to it, and adding their voice to what was becoming consensus position. Third person joined for similar reasons, and with each additional voice, the social proof became stronger, making it easier for next person to join and harder for anyone to dissent. Some psychologists studying group dynamics recognize this as informational cascade, where people make decisions based on observed actions of others rather than on private information, creating situations where large groups can be confidently wrong because everyone is assuming everyone else has information, justifying the shared position when in reality, everyone is just following everyone else. Your case demonstrates textbook informational cascade. Initial challenge created perception of information that subsequent challengers assumed must exist, even though they didn't personally verify it, building consensus that appeared solid but was actually built on circular reasoning where each person's confidence was based on others' confidence rather than on actual evidence. Others are recognizing what they call pluralistic ignorance, where people privately question whether group consensus is correct, but publicly go along with it because they assume their private doubts are unique rather than shared. Several people in the room challenging, you might have privately felt uncertain about whether the group's claims were actually verified, but they didn't voice those doubts because expressing uncertainty while others expressed certainty would make them look uninformed or weak. Your single supporter broke this pluralistic ignorance by demonstrating that dissent was possible, giving permission for others to acknowledge their own unspoken doubts. A few observers are noting how quickly confidence reversed once consensus broke. People who were certain you were wrong seconds ago are now uncertain or even suspecting they might be wrong, despite no new evidence being presented beyond one person backing you. This rapid reversal reveals that their certainty was never about evidence, it was about social dynamics. When social dynamics supported challenging you, they were certain. When social dynamics shifted toward questioning the challenge, their certainty evaporated immediately. The content of the disagreement didn't change, but the social configuration did, and that was sufficient to completely reverse their expressed confidence levels. The architects observe that social proof substitution explains why your single supporter was so devastatingly effective. They didn't need to present extensive evidence or make compelling arguments. They just needed to break the illusion of unanimity that was providing false confidence to the challenging group. Once unanimity broke, each person in that group suddenly had to confront whether they personally had evidence for the claims they'd been making, and most discovered they didn't. The consensus had been held together by everyone assuming everyone else had good reasons, and your supporter revealed that this mutual assumption was unsupported. Nobody actually had the evidence that everyone assumed must exist somewhere in the group. Something fascinating is spreading through the room now, what the architects call retroactive doubt cascade, where people aren't just questioning their current challenge against you, but are starting to question how many other times they've been similarly wrong with similar confidence. The experience of realizing they challenged you without proof is triggering deeper reflection about their general epistemic practices. How often do they claim certainty based on social consensus rather than personal verification? How many of their firmly held beliefs are actually just widely shared, assumptions they've never questioned? This meta-level realization is more unsettling than just being wrong in this specific instance because it suggests systematic problem with how they form and maintain beliefs. Watch how different people are processing this uncomfortable recognition. Some are experiencing what psychologists call belief revision. They're not just updating their position on the specific issue where they challenged you. They're reconsidering their entire approach to belief formation and expression. They're recognizing they need to be more careful about distinguishing between "I know this is true because I've verified it" and "I believe this is true because people I trust seem certain about it." This recognition could lead to more epistemically humble and rigorous thinking in future situations, making this uncomfortable moment potentially valuable learning experience. Some people are deflecting responsibility for their participation in the unjustified challenge, claiming they were just asking questions, saying they never really believed the claims they were amplifying, suggesting they were just playing devil's advocate. These deflections are attempts to protect ego from having to acknowledge they were intellectually careless. But observers who heard their tone and confidence when they were challenging you recognized these deflections as retrospective rewriting of their actual behavior. They weren't tentatively questioning. They were confidently asserting. The attempt to retroactively soften their position makes them look worse rather than better because it adds dishonesty to the original error. Others are doubling down rather than acknowledging error, insisting that even though they can't produce proof right now, they're sure it exists somewhere, or claiming that absence of immediate proof doesn't mean they're wrong. This doubling down is psychological defense mechanism protecting them from cognitive dissonance of having been confidently wrong. But this defense is transparent to observers and actually damages their credibility more than straightforward acknowledgement of error would. Everyone can see they're protecting ego rather than pursuing truth. A few people are offering genuine apologies to you for challenging you without sufficient basis. These apologies reflect intellectual honesty and emotional maturity, ability to acknowledge error without excessive ego protection, to prioritize truth and fairness over self-image protection. These individuals are likely to gain respect from observers even while acknowledging they were wrong, because they're honest. Acknowledgement demonstrates character that everyone recognizes as admirable. The architects observe that retroactive doubt cascade amplifies impact of your vindication beyond just this specific instance. You're not just proven right about the immediate issue. You're triggering broader recognition among challengers that their epistemic practices need improvement. Some will learn from this experience and become more careful about distinguishing social consensus from actual evidence. Others will forget the discomfort and continue operating on assumptions, setting themselves up for similar embarrassments in future. But everyone in the room will remember this moment when collective certainty collapsed instantly because it had no evidential foundation, and that memory will influence group dynamics. Whenever someone challenges someone else going forward, your single supporter didn't just vindicate you in this instance. They exposed systematic problem with how groups form and maintain false consensus. Now the architects are revealing what your single supporter's intervention accomplished beyond just breaking false consensus. They demonstrated what they call courage premium value, where one person's willingness to break from group pressure creates disproportionate impact, because most people are psychologically inhibited from being first to center even when they privately question group consensus. Your supporter wasn't necessarily more knowledgeable or more certain than others in the room. They were just more willing to publicly break ranks and accept the social risk that comes with opposing apparent unanimity. This courage to dissent is rare enough that when someone demonstrates it, the social dynamics shift dramatically because they've done what others wanted to do but were too socially cautious to attempt. Consider the psychology that inhibits dissent from apparent consensus. When you're in a situation where everyone seems to agree on something, publicly disagreeing carries social risks. You might be wrong and look foolish. You might be ostracized for breaking group unity. You might damage relationships with people whose consensus you're challenging. These social risks create what psychologists call conformity pressure that makes people hesitant to express dissent, even when they have legitimate doubts. Your supporter apparently assessed these social risks and decided supporting you was worth accepting them, demonstrating courage that others in the room lacked, even if they privately questioned the consensus challenging you. Watch what happened to social dynamics once your supporter took that risk. Other people who'd had private doubts but hadn't voiced them suddenly found courage to express their own uncertainty. The supporter had absorbed the social risk of being first dissenter, making it safer for others to join dissent once it was no longer a solitary position. This is why first dissenter has such disproportionate impact. They change the social calculus for everyone else by demonstrating that dissent is possible and by reducing the social isolation that comes with disagreeing with apparent consensus. Some observers are noting that your supporter chose optimal moment for intervention. They waited until the challenging group had fully committed to their position before speaking up. If your supporter had dissented immediately when first challenge was voiced, it might have been dismissed as premature or uninformed, but by allowing the challenging consensus to build and then breaking it after everyone had committed to their positions, your supporter ensured maximum impact. The fuller the consensus before it breaks, the more dramatic the collapse when it reveals it had no foundation. Others are recognizing that your supporter's intervention was strategically minimal. They didn't launch into lengthy defense of you or extensive critique of challengers. They simply stated their support clearly and then let the challenging group confront their own lack of evidence. This minimal intervention was actually more effective than elaborate defense would have been because it focused attention on the core issue. The challenging group had been operating on assumptions rather than proof. Elaborate defense might have shifted focus to debating specific claims, allowing challengers to maintain their position by disputing details. The simple statement of support forced them to confront absence of foundational evidence. A few social dynamics researchers are recognizing your supporter as what they call a social proof disruptor, someone who breaks false consensus by demonstrating that apparent unanimity isn't actual unanimity. Most people assume that if everyone around them agrees on something, there must be good reason for that agreement. Social proof disruptors reveal that this assumption is often false, that apparent consensus can exist without evidential basis, that unanimity proves only agreement, not correctness. Your supporter served this disruptor role perfectly, revealing that the unanimous challenge against you was facade built on mutual assumption rather than collective knowledge. The architects observed that courage, premium value, explains why single supporter was sufficient to collapse entire groups' certainty. They didn't need to be majority or even significant minority. They just needed to demonstrate that dissent was possible and that the apparent unanimity was illusion. Once that illusion broke, the lack of actual evidence became undeniable to everyone, including the challengers themselves. Your supporters' courage in accepting social risk of dissent created opening for truth to become visible where group dynamics had been obscuring it. The architects are now analyzing what this experience reveals about you specifically and why you were able to maintain your position despite overwhelming social pressure before anyone backed you. They call this solitary certainty maintenance, and it describes ability to maintain confidence in your position even when facing apparent unanimous opposition, suggesting you have either very strong evidence for your claims or very strong resistance to social pressure that would cause most people to doubt themselves when everyone else seems certain they're wrong. This capability is psychologically rare because human beings are deeply social creatures whose confidence is normally calibrated partly by social consensus. We doubt ourselves more when others disagree with us and feel more certain when others agree. You apparently have unusual ability to maintain certainty independently of social validation. Consider what maintaining solitary certainty requires. You need strong enough evidence or reasoning for your position that social disagreement doesn't undermine your confidence, or you need high tolerance for social discomfort that comes from standing alone against group consensus, or you need low sensitivity to status threats that come from being publicly challenged by multiple people. Most people lack one or more of these characteristics, which is why social conformity is so powerful. The psychological discomfort of standing alone against group is intense enough that most people will modify their expressed views and sometimes even their actual beliefs to align with consensus rather than endure sustained disagreement. Watch what your solitary certainty communicated to observers. Before anyone backed you, some observers were uncertain whether you were admirably standing up for truth or stubbornly refusing to acknowledge you were wrong. Your confidence in face of opposition could have been either principled strength or foolish pride, depending on whether you were actually right. When your supporter broke consensus and revealed challengers had no proof, it retroactively clarified that your solitary certainty was justified. You were standing on solid ground, while the crowd challenging you was standing on quicksand. This vindication transforms observers' interpretation of your earlier behavior from possibly stubborn to impressively principled. Some people who initially joined in challenging you are now experiencing respect for your ability to stand alone despite social pressure. They recognize that you demonstrated strength they lack, ability to maintain conviction when everyone else seemed certain you were wrong. This respect is grudging. For some who don't want to admire someone, they were just challenging, but it's genuine because they recognize the psychological difficulty of what you did. Standing alone against group consensus is uncomfortable for most people, even when they're right, which makes your sustained solitary certainty noteworthy. Others are questioning whether you somehow knew that support would arrive, whether you had private knowledge that not everyone agreed with the challenging consensus, even though they weren't speaking up. If you knew your supporter's position beforehand, it would explain your confidence and reduce the impressiveness of your stand. But if you genuinely didn't know anyone would back you and maintained your position anyway based purely on strength of your own evidence and conviction, that demonstrates remarkable psychological fortitude that operates independently of social validation. A few observers are recognizing that your solitary certainty might have actually helped your supporter find courage to speak up. If you had wavered or seemed uncertain, potential supporters might have concluded you weren't confident enough in your position to warrant their taking social risk of backing you. But your sustained certainty, despite opposition, signaled that you had strong basis for your position, making it easier for supporter to decide backing you was reasonable rather than foolish. Your psychological strength created conditions that enabled someone else to demonstrate courage in supporting you. The architects observe that solitary certainty maintenance is valuable capability that serves you well in situations where truth is temporarily unpopular or social consensus has formed around incorrect position. You demonstrated ability to stand alone until support arrives, to maintain conviction when social pressure would cause most people to doubt themselves, to to tolerate discomfort of being apparently isolated in your position. This capability, combined with actual correctness of your position, created perfect conditions for dramatic vindication when your supporter revealed that the consensus against you had no evidential foundation. Now something's emerging that the architects call credibility redistribution effect. The dramatic collapse of the challenging group's certainty is redistributing credibility within the social network, with you gaining trust and authority, while those who challenged you without evidence are losing credibility in observers' assessments. This redistribution extends beyond just this specific incident. People are updating their general evaluation of whose judgments to trust based on who was proven right when positions were tested. You're now seen as more reliable source than you were before the challenge, while challengers are seen as less reliable, creating lasting shift in social dynamics that will influence future interactions. Watch how credibility redistribution operates in practice. People who weren't involved in the original disagreement, but observed the whole sequence, are now more likely to give weight to your opinions on other matters because you demonstrated good judgment when it was tested. If you express view on unrelated topic tomorrow, observers who watched you get vindicated today will take that view more seriously than they would have yesterday. This is rational updating. They've received new information about your reliability. You maintained correct position against social pressure, and they're adjusting their trust calibration accordingly. Some people who challenged you are experiencing credibility damage that extends beyond acknowledgement that they were wrong in this instance. Observers are questioning their general judgment and intellectual rigor. If they were so confidently wrong about this, what else might they be confidently wrong about? This broader credibility damage is what makes backing claims without evidence socially risky. Being wrong after expressing appropriate uncertainty is forgiven easily. Being wrong after expressing high certainty suggests poor calibration between confidence and knowledge that makes you unreliable source for future information. Others who remained neutral during the challenge are gaining credibility for their restraint. They didn't join the pile-on against you even when it seemed like everyone was certain you were wrong, and that restraint now looks like wisdom rather than mere hesitation. These neutral parties benefit from credibility redistribution without having taken risk of actively supporting you. They didn't challenge without evidence, avoiding credibility damage of the challenging group, and they didn't stick their necks out to support you, avoiding the social risk your supporter took. Yet they still gain modest credibility boost from observers who recognize their neutral position reflected appropriate epistemic caution. A few sophisticated observers are recognizing that your supporter deserves special credibility recognition beyond what you receive. You were defending your own position, which meant you had strong personal motivation to maintain it, regardless of social pressure. Your supporter was defending someone else's position, accepting social risk without direct personal stake in the outcome, demonstrating courage and judgment that's less ambiguous than yours. They get credibility boost not just for being on correct side, but for having integrity to support truth when it was socially costly to do so. The architects observe that credibility redistribution effect creates lasting consequences from temporary conflict. The specific disagreement that triggered this situation may be forgotten, but the updated credibility assessments will persist and influence future interactions. You've gained social capital that will make your voice more influential in future discussions. Your challengers have lost social capital that will make others more skeptical of their confident claims. Your supporter has gained reputation for courage and judgment that will enhance their influence. These shifts in social standing are more consequential than the original disagreement because they affect entire future trajectory of relationships and influence. within the network. The second someone backed you and the room realized they had zero proof, it didn't just resolve that specific dispute. It reshuffled the social hierarchy based on who demonstrated good judgment and intellectual integrity when those qualities were tested.